Throughout history, there have been days that shook nations to their core, where entire populations were devastated and the effects were felt for generations. Today, we're going to dive into some of the worst days in history for 20 different countries. From natural disasters to brutal conflicts, these are moments that changed everything. China, 1930 floods. Let's begin with China. In 1931, the deadliest natural disaster in recorded history struck. The Yangtze, Yellow, and Huai rivers overflowed after heavy rainfall. The floods ravaged towns, farmlands, and cities, drowning millions and causing unspeakable devastation. Death toll: an estimated 1 to 4 million people lost their lives. For the United States, it was September 11, 2001. Two hijacked planes struck the Twin Towers in New York City, killing nearly 3,000 people. This single act of terrorism left the world in shock and led to a series of events that shaped modern geopolitics. India, 1770 Bengal famine. In India, the 1770 Bengal famine was a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. Triggered by drought and made worse by British colonial policies, 10 million people perished in a year. The sheer scale of suffering was unfathomable. Japan faced one of the darkest chapters in human history when the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Instantly, around 200,000 people died from the blasts and radiation, marking the tragic end of World War II for Japan.
The world will note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, a military base. We won the race of discovery against the Germans. We have used it in order to shorten the agony of war, in order to save the lives of thousands and thousands of young Americans. We shall continue to use it until we completely destroy Japan's power to make war.
Russia, Siege of Leningrad, 1941-1944. Russia's darkest moment came during World War II with the Siege of Leningrad. For nearly 900 days, the city was surrounded by Nazi forces, cutting off food and supplies. Over 1 million people died, mostly from starvation, in what was one of the most brutal sieges in history. Haiti, 2010 earthquake. Haiti's 2010 earthquake struck with merciless force, destroying much of the capital, Port-au-Prince. Buildings crumbled, people were trapped, and in a matter of minutes, over 220,000 people lost their lives. The nation is still recovering to this day. Germany, World War II Holocaust, 1941 to 1945. Germany's worst moment in history was undoubtedly the Holocaust, where over 6 million Jews, along with countless other minorities, were systematically murdered during World War II. This period stands as a haunting reminder of the depths of human cruelty. Democratic Republic of the Congo, Second Congo War, 1998-2003. The Second Congo War, often called Africa's World War, led to the deaths of 5.4 million people. It wasn't just the fighting, but disease and starvation that caused most of the casualties. The war remains one of the deadliest conflicts since World War II. Cambodia's worst chapter came under the Khmer Rouge regime, where nearly 2 million people were executed or died from forced labor, starvation, and disease. The fields of Cambodia turned into killing fields. Like much of the world, Spain was ravaged by the Spanish flu in 1918. Over 300,000 Spaniards lost their lives during the pandemic, with hospitals overflowing and entire communities brought to their knees. In 2004, Indonesia was hit by one of the most devastating tsunamis in recorded history. A massive underwater earthquake triggered waves that killed over 230,000 people, wiping out entire towns along the coast. Rwanda's 1994 genocide was one of the bloodiest in recent history. Over 800,000 people, mostly Tutsis, were slaughtered in just 100 days. Neighbors turned against neighbors in a frenzy of violence, leaving the country scarred for generations. Italy's Pompeii disaster is infamous. In 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum under volcanic ash. Thousands perished instantly, and the cities were forgotten for centuries until their rediscovery. During the Biafra Civil War, over 2 million people died, mostly from starvation due to a blockade that cut off food and medicine to the southeastern region. The images of starving children captured the world's attention, but came too late for many. Mexico's 1985 earthquake shook the capital to its core, killing at least 10,000 people and leaving many more homeless. The devastation sparked widespread criticism of the government's inadequate response and led to massive public protests. Vietnam's worst days occurred during the Vietnam War, with an estimated 3 million people killed, including civilians. The effects of Agent Orange and unexploded ordnance continue to haunt the country to this day. The Korean War was a brutal chapter for both North and South Korea. South Korea alone lost over 1 million people, with cities reduced to rubble and families torn apart by the conflict. The Black Death of 1348 to 1350 was an unthinkable tragedy. Around 1/3 of the population, close to 3 million people, perished as the plague swept through villages, leaving death in its wake. The Battle of Verdun during World War I was one of France's most horrific battles. Lasting nearly a year, it claimed over 700,000 lives with no clear winner. The devastation to both life and land was incalculable. Ethiopia's famine between 1983 and 1985 killed over 1 million people. Drought and political conflict compounded the crisis, and the haunting images of starvation shocked the world into action, yet many lives were lost before help could arrive. These days will forever remain etched in the memories of the people who lived through them. They are a reminder of how fragile human existence can be in the face of nature, war, and tragedy. If we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it.